hosted by Joe. Welcome to the Decahedron RPG podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, this is Joe. Before we begin this week's episode, I just wanted to take a moment and mention the passing of industry legend Jim Ward, probably best known for Metamorphosis Alpha, Gamma World, Deities and Demigods, and probably the only person to have a D&D spell named after him. He passed away last week as I record this. Again, all the greats are going away. So, Jim Ward, wherever you find yourself, may all your mutations be beneficial. Hey everyone, this is Joe. Once again, this week I'm joined by two guests. The guests are James. Hi, James.
Hello, Joe.
And Darkfluid. Hi, Darkfluid.
Hello.
So what happened is, you might remember last week I played a message by Jason, and it said this.
Hey, Joe. So I would like to have seen James's thief Minotaur. I think that would be very interesting. A Dany Minotaur trying to be a thief. I think that could be a lot of fun to play. I will talk to you soon.
So sadly, that Minotaur thief was never finished. James was new to Big Eye Small Mouth / Tristat. You know, it's a really different type of system. Yeah, if you've never done it before, it takes a while to butt your head against it until it sinks in, like how it's different and what you're supposed to do. And, you know, he wasn't quite getting it, and I was willing to help, but he didn't want help. He wanted to do it on his own. And we were running out of time, and so eventually, you know, I suggested Savage Worlds. The Minotaur became the Tiger Man because the cat was more thief-like. But because of Jason's suggestion, what we all three of us have done, we have created our own version of Minotaur Thieves, although no one has done it in Big Eye Small Mouth.
But anyway, I'm talking a lot. Sir, go ahead and present your thief.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something you may not have looked at. In the second edition, they came out with a lot of additional books, and I did pull two of them out. I was going to do a third.
We call those splat books, by the way, James.
Okay, well, I used the complete book of humanoids and the complete handbook. There was another one I was going to use. I was already getting very in-depth and a long list. I tend to start creating my characters by putting all the skills and all the abilities together in a list so I can start cutting back on, I want this, but I can't afford it with this type of build. Now, to the rolls, did use, I think it was method 4. It was roll 3d6 2 times for each ability score and take whatever one you want. There were pluses and minuses. The pluses were to strength and constitutions, and the minuses was wisdom and charisma. My final scores was strength 17, dex 12, constitution 16, intelligence 12, wisdom 10, and charisma 11. Now, several things with this character. In the Thief's Handbook, they have, I believe we call it subclasses. I took Thug, actual name, Thug, page 43 of the Thief's Handbook. Like Joseph was saying, me and him were going down with the Minotaur as being the character. It just was not fitting for a thief. Where in second edition, the thug is much more of a brute, and that's why it fits for that there. With the Minotaur for its race, it gets an additional 6 hit points. Now the thug starts with a 1d6 hit points. He can be any alignment, and I normally take chaotic good. Natural armor class was 6. Now, I'm just bringing this up for the Minotaur side of it. Most Minotaurs are either cursed humans or offsprings of a Minotaur and a female. The character is 7 feet tall, with a bull's head and the body of a human. Depending on how you want to play it, they can be very savage and uncivilized and very brutish. That's the way I was going for my character. He can track. He's immune to mazes due to his background. Infravision he has. Now, the thief skills, this is where it was not in his favor. In the thief's handbook, the percentages that he got, because that's what they use for the skills, was only 40. Now, him being a Minotaur, the thief pick and the pickpockets just did not fit, so I left him at 0. Because my idea is he's going to have 100% kick in door or 100% punch the person and take what he wants from him. Now, this is one part that I am having a little back and forth with the Minotaur. I'm thinking hands would be much more useful for him, weapon-wise. I was thinking the Great Axe, just got the motif of it, but the staff made it much better. And back to, I believe it was Merc who said it's less deterrent for the guards, but I'm sorry to say, being a Minotaur, he's automatically going to be well watched.
But by the way, that was Daniel from the Bandits Keep that said that.
Sorry, Daniel. Now, overall, that's what I got for the character. Now, background, and I did not go in depth for this. It's just not my forte to flesh out every detail, but I'm taking him as just being a commoner in a town. Oh, sorry. His mother was a commoner in town, just happened to walk the wrong path one night, and next thing she knows, she has a son. He was always looked down upon in the town, but he was big enough to make any bully think twice about picking on him. I would have done much more if we were actually playing a game with this character, fleshing him out, but that's my take on a Minotaur thief. It's just I could not see a finesse with a Minotaur. Just my own view after a long discussion with Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with that thing about lack of finesse, which we'll talk about more when we talk about my character. Thanks for that, James. Yeah, those splat books in second edition, I'm not a fan of that type of thing.
I forgot one comment I didn't want to make. The time when they were coming out, I was in love with the books. Several years later, when you're trying to create a character and you have to go through 10 different books to create one character, it was no longer fun. I think that's one of the big pushes on the computers creating your characters for you. You put the numbers in and they show you what you could pick. That helped in a lot of areas.
This was also my story with GURPS, right? When I first got GURPS, it was one box with 2 little floppy books inside, book 1 and book 2, because I've been with GURPS since first edition. Well, before first edition, even I've talked about that far too much. But, and then by the time second edition comes out, it's a bigger book. But, it starts with that, but there's no magic in there. So then there's a magic book with all the magic spells. And then there's, it just became more and more books. And, if you want science fiction, well, then you have the science fiction book that tells you how to build spaceships. And then you have the other book that has all the science fiction gear in it, which isn't in the science fiction book, and I not my thing, but that's me. Clearly it made Steve Jackson enough money.
I agree with that. It makes him lots of money.
Yeah, and I'll comment on those splat books, the kits. I had exactly the same experience. I loved them when they came out, very quickly soured on them. And in fact, it's what's kept me from playing a lot of 3rd or 5th edition subsequent, because Second edition is a very fine game. I still play it a lot, and I'm sure the other games are as well. But I typically, on any game now, avoid those splat books as they come out because I tend to find they take away rather than add to the game in the long run. And it's a very smart business move. Players buy books. Those are aimed at the players. They can be fun for these one-offs, though. So
yeah, I take the rather controversial stance that Greyhawk and Blackmoor were the original splat books. But hey, that's me.
hey, I could see that.
Yeah, they both introduce new classes, new spells, new items, and they here, fit this into your campaign. Anyway, tell us about your Minotaur Thief, Darkfluid.
So, system I used, even though I kind of envision him as being played in a normal BX game, but Lamentations of the Flame Princess, their thief is called a specialist, and I always try and convince my other players for playing something like BX to use this version of the thief. It is essentially an X and 6 chance for all of the skills on a D6. I believe what you've said before, in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, every character gets the first level thief skills, essentially, a 1 and 6 on all of them. So I kind of like that system as well. And I'll go ahead and name these skills in case someone's not used to this system. It's architecture, bushcraft, climb, languages, search, sleight of hand, stealth, and tinker. And I did do something a little bit differently, even though this is a BX kind of inspired game. I did also go to AD&D 2nd edition and used, in the later books, speaking of even past the splat books, they had the player's options book, and they introduced some additional character generation options. And one of them was, I believe they refer to it as option 7 or method 7, which is 75 points arranged to taste. And it creates a little bit more powerful of a character of 3d6 down the line. I also looked at potentially using the something like the complete book of humanoids from 2E, but I decided that since this is more of an old school game system that I used, just using that point buy system would create such a powerful character that he would feel like a Minotaur with the strength advantages and everything. The stats I picked were strength 18, constitution 17, dexterity 9, wisdom 9, intelligence 14, charisma 9. That gives him a modifier on strength, constitution, and intelligence with no negatives. So I already felt, compared to your average character in the system, if they'd done 1d6 down the line, he's already a bit of a brute and feels like he's playing a Minotaur in a man's world. So the way the system works is, of those thief skills, you get to assign 4 points at first level, and then you gain points in subsequent levels to assign to your X and 6 chance. I chose climb, stealth, languages, and architecture, although it was a real wash between languages and search. And the main reason I did it is similar to James. I kind of felt that he wasn't going to be much of a pickpocket because he was going to stand out quite a bit. And he wasn't going to be a guy who picks locks a lot. He's going to kick them down if he has to. But I envisioned him more of a burglar type who, not quite Indiana Jones-ish, but he does a lot of research in advance, learns the building, a lot of climbing, stealth, finding out where things are in his entry point. Also, I kind of did picture some of the Conan-style thief or Indiana Jones, where the languages would come in handy, where there might be things on the wall, and maybe he's raiding ancient tombs and things like that, where he can read the language and get clues as to how to proceed. So I kind of pictured him in that way. His background, I kind of went with that Minotaurs are more tribes, small tribes, and he actually has his right horn cut off, which has stunted its growth, as a punishment from his Minotaur tribe for thievery.
I like that.
Yeah, he's essentially been exiled because of that, because while not all tribes might recognize that, most would. So he's kind of a little bit exiled from the Minotaur world. Most humans wouldn't realize it, but I also kind of thought, Minotaur thief is hard for a GM sometimes to work into a party in some environments, and that might give him excuse to have fled to the more human worlds where he is maybe less accepted, is that he's exiled a little bit. Because as you said earlier, that thieves really should blend in, and I don't think he's going to do that very well as your classic thief. So I did come up with a name, but it's a little too much on the nose, I think. Little Bighorn is a little bit too much on the nose, so I might have to work on that one.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
That's no worse than the name that I was starting with, Bulldozer.
All right. No, I like your thief. I guess I should present mine. So originally I was going to do background first and then the character, but now I'm wondering if I shouldn't do the other way because that's the way you both did it. I'm trying to decide which way I want to go. I guess I'll go. No, I'll go with background first because that's the way I think.
I think you're just better at it. And that's why you want to start with it.
You might disagree when you hear this background. For my background, I drew a lot from the initial. Well, first of all, I like human only worlds, right? I made no secret about that. That's one of my things. I like a human centric world. And so this is a human only world in which he is going to be the only Minotaur. I went a lot back to the original myth for this, although I definitely changed the reason for his birth because, yeah, I'm not going to deal with those issues either around the gaming table or on this show. So his name is Starrick, and that's pretty much just an anglicization of the actual Minotaur's name. Likewise, I anglicized the mother's name from Persephone to Elan. And so Elan was a priestess who saw the world with simple, unyielding certainty. Yes, I wrote this out as a little story. I'm going to read it. The god Hume was the father of light and all that was good, while she saw the goddess Gob as the antithesis of everything that she held dear. On the anniversary of a hard-won military victory, tradition dictated a Thanksgiving offering to Gob. But in a naive plea for a continued peace, Elan defied custom and offered a bull to Hume instead. In anger, Gob cursed Elan with a living testament of her defiance. Elan inexplicably found herself as an expectant mother. Priestesses were expected to remain chaste, so the community was quick to brand her as a sinner and exile her from the city. Wandering alone in the wilderness, Elan happened upon a troupe of traveling entertainers. There were a motley crew of jesters, musicians, acrobats, and, unbeknownst to most, skilled thieves and con artists. Though wary of their unorthodox ways and their open worship of Gob, the desperate Elan accepted their generous offer to join them. Into this unconventional family, Starrick, a Minotaur, was born. Growing up amidst laughter, music, and the thrill of the con, he developed a unique set of skills. He was large and strong, but his attempts at stealth always ended up in comedic mishaps. His acrobatic endeavors were a spectacle of bumbles and stumbles. Yet Starrick had an uncanny knack for turning even the most disastrous situations to his advantages. One such instance was when Starrick stole the amulet of Tyree, which was displayed proudly in an earl's banquet hall. His attempt to swing in on a chandelier ended up with the rope snapping under his weight and sending him crashing onto the banquet table. Yet amidst the chaos, he managed to snatch the amulet and make a hasty exit. Over the years, Elan came to learn the balance between Hume and Gob. She finally understood that even a goddess associated with war, death, and wealth could be worshipped in the right circumstances. In the town of Burek, she found a position as a priestess and bid a bittersweet farewell to the troop. Not wanting to be far from his mother, Starrick also left the troop and settled in the nearby wilderness. He is now a solitary shadow in the outskirts of society. A highwayman, he is seen as a menace by some, but his careful choice of victims and generosity to those in needs reveals his heart of gold. So that's his background. The vibe I'm going for here is, I think there's a lot of overlap between thieves and spies. And I think that was probably colored by GURPS saying that thief skills and spy skills were the same, because they both need to pick locks to break into doors and everything. And Jason said he thought it would be fun. So I was trying to create a fun character. So what we have here is the medieval thief equivalent of Maxwell Smart or Inspector Clouseau, if you prefer.
I think Maxwell Smart is closer.
In his mind, well, they're both the same concept, right? They're bumbling people who have this incredible luck because despite their bumbling ways, they always get the job done in the end. And that's what the little story about the Amulet of Tyree was supposed to invoke there. For my system, I used Fate Accelerated Edition because, you can get very narrative versus just statty with it. And so instead of having stats, Fate Accelerated has approaches. Instead of saying roll for your dex to be quiet, you'd say roll versus your sneaky, because that's the approach you're taking. So I rated him lowest in quickness. I thought about sneaky, but sneaky also covers like conversational sneakiness, and I didn't want that one to be dropped to the bottom. But that is sneaky and careful are the next lowest two. And then at fair is clever and flashy, because he thinks that much like Maxwell Smart, he thinks that he is the world's greatest thief. He just isn't. Oh, also, world's greatest thief. That's a nod to Phineas Fingers, by the way. Anyway, and his highest approach, of course, is forceful because he is a Minotaur. The high concept, so in Fate, you have a high concept that is an aspect. In Fate, aspects are like advantages or disadvantages, often a combination of both. You can be compelled to use them, or you can invoke them for an advantage, in which case it costs you some meta currency, or you can be forced to invoke them for a disadvantage, in which case you get meta currency back. But anyway, so his high concept is that he's the bumbling burglar of Burek, with all that backstory entails. A trouble, that's like a disadvantage, that is an aspect that can only be used, but the majority of the time, be used against you, almost never in your favor. He's a bull in the china shop. See what I did there? Bull in the china shop, Minotaur. Okay. Another aspect I took was bullheaded. See what I'm going with there? Huh? Anyway, but that aspect I figure isn't just a disadvantage. It can go both ways, because whether a person is stubborn or strong will is a matter of whether you agree with them or not, right? If you agree with he refused to tell the Nazis where his unit was, that's strong will.
That's a clever aspect to choose right there. I like that due to the duality of it.
Yeah, and of course, bullheaded, because, the pun. And his last aspect there is, don't you talk about my mama, because how did this human woman end up with a half-bull child? People have opinions about that. He doesn't like people doing that. And finally, Fate has this thing called stunts. You can have up to 3, if I remember right, but they recommend that you only start with 1, and you develop the others during play. So the one I came up with, I called it Fortuitous Fumble. The text of it is, because I'm amazingly lucky despite my bumbling ways, once per game session, when I fail a roll, I can stumble across a valuable item. Valuable might mean in wealth, it might mean in terms of the plot, whatever. Because again, that invokes that Maxwell Smart vibe, right? He accidentally falls down, but he falls on the enemy plans to do whatever. And that is Starrick, the bumbling burglar of Burek.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I think I like the theme of the bull in the china shop, kind of inspiring that. And I also am a fan of characters that luck their way through life, especially when it comes to rogues.
Yeah, a guy I worked with, big into comic books, we discussed making a superhero called Luckman, who that's his only superpower, is that he's incredibly lucky.
Also, extra points for using the term highwayman, at least in the games. It may just be me in the games I've played. For when it comes to PC thieves specifically, see a lot of burglars, a lot of pickpockets, and a lot of Indiana Jones type delvers, but few PC highwaymen for some reason. James, just my games, but
there was a lot of inspiration here from other sources too. So James' original character was going to be, he said it was like part Robin Hood, although that part fell away. And Robin Hood is really a highwayman by another name. And the Traveling Troupe of Entertainers is actually a nod to Daniel's character in the upcoming Tunnels and Trolls game. So we have all presented our Minotaur Thieves. I hope you liked them, listener.
All right. Well, that is it. That is everything. I would like to thank you both for joining me. So thank you, Darkfluid. Thank you, James, and everyone else. Do let us know what you thought. Feedback at decahedron.com, or you can call the feedback line. All that information is in the show notes, and it is available at www.decahedron.com. Remember to spell decahedron with a K. Let us know what you think of the Minotaur Thieves here and the various game systems that we used. So thanks again for listening, and until next week, happy gaming, happy life. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Decahedron RPG podcast. Please come back again to the Decahedron RPG podcast.